So I recently bought a new hi-fi setup, which I couldn't be happier with. Combination of KEF speakers and stands, an ARC amplifier and a project turntable. So I've had them set up here at home for a few weeks now. If you're interested in the individual components of the hi-fi, then again comment below and I'll comment back to you to let you know specifically what I've bought. I wanted to just drop my thoughts around the impact and the benefits of having such a setup. For years now we've been living in a world where we can access almost unlimited amounts of music pretty much anywhere in the world at any time. This has obvious benefits to the listeners, as well as a whole host of perceived negatives, which I'm not going to go into on this video. But what I wanted to do was share my experience, my thought process around the impact of acquiring hi-fi in my home in a specific space within my house, essentially purely for listening to music. How that's impacted me as a listener, and I suppose how that's made me feel as an artist as well, around the debate, discussion from streaming services versus physical music and owning a piece of something that you can tangibly hold in your hands, place onto a piece of kit and sit and listen to. So I'm going to give you 5 reasons why I think having something like this to a varying degree is a brilliant thing to do as either a listener or an artist. So number 1, what I've experienced in the past 2 weeks, it's re-engaged me to listening to whole albums. A concept that might sound a little bit outdated, a little bit old-fashioned maybe, but a lot of albums are intended to be a body of work, not just a collection of singles, albeit that has changed a little bit over the years because of platforms like Spotify, Tidal, etc. A lot of the albums that I grew up loving and listening to were created and curated as a body of work, 40, 50, 60 minutes of music that flowed with a track listing that was specifically done in order and had dynamic shifts on purpose through the flow of an album, not just a song. Obviously when you're playing vinyl, it isn't like playing music via your phone or a laptop where you can just flick between songs literally within a second. If you want to do that, it takes a bit of skill and a bit of patience, but fundamentally it makes you listen to songs in a sequential order, and there's clear benefits to doing that. The second thing that I found is that it's making me really stop and listen to the music, be in the moment and pay attention to what I'm hearing. The reality is that when you listen to music on your phone and your headphones, walking to work, shopping, whatever it might be, oftentimes the music is background noise and it's not something that you're intently listening to. You might be doing it whilst being on the internet, you might be doing it whilst talking to someone, texting someone, being on social media, whatever it might be, but you've got a constant blur of noise in the background. And what this has done is made me really bring that music to the foreground. When I'm sat and I'm listening to this music, this is my sole focus, and as much as possible, everything in my being is paying attention to what I'm listening to and absorbing it all in. And I have to say that's been really refreshing. It's been years probably since I've truly done that, and it is making for a much more pleasurable experience. The third thing that it's made me reflect on is, I suppose, giving something back to the artist. In reality, apart from going to gigs, maybe buying merch, we don't buy CDs anymore, I don't really buy tapes. Oftentimes I can find myself listening to hours and hours and hours of music by bands that I absolutely adore, but actually I've never really supported them financially in any way, shape or form. Again, potentially an old, outdated mode of thought to some people, but as an artist I truly believe that artists should be remunerated for the work that they do. And having a setup like this with a record player empowers me to go out and purchase physical items from bands that I take a lot from, ultimately, so to give something back. And that makes me feel really good. For 20 to 30 pounds a pop, I can hold something physically in my hands that has had blood, sweat and tears poured into it by the artist, but I've given something back to them to say thank you for what they've done. As a musician, listening to records as they were intended to be heard, literally listening to albums I've heard probably hundreds of times over the years, and hearing nuances within the mix, within the production, that I'd never ever heard before, and that's pretty special. It's like the layers of the pie being pulled apart, and a good setup like this really reveals everything, good, bad and the ugly, about what you're listening to. I suppose that takes me on to the 5th point that I'd mentioned. My amplifier, my setup does stream from Bluetooth, so I can stream Spotify, which is the platform I use, digitally, whether it's from a streaming service like Spotify or through a record. it just sounds so good. Way better than listening to my little iPhone headphones, way better than listening to my monitor speakers up in my studio. And it reminds me of why I fell in love with music all those years back, and why music is something that I've chased and been involved in, been absorbed by for all of my adult life. If you're thinking of buying hi-fi or getting into vinyl records, whatever it might be, if you're thinking of finding a space within wherever you live to sit and fall in love with music all over, it's taken me a long time to get this space to do this, so I really appreciate the setup that I've got right now, and I'm sure as many of you will feel the same. It just feels brilliant that no matter what is going on in my life, no matter what the weather is doing outside or how I feel inside, I'll have this space to come back to retreat to, and to pour art into my ears, into my mind, and that's a beautiful thing. If you've got any thoughts on what I've talked about today, you've got your own setup at home, any differing views in terms of streaming and digital versus physical, then again comment below and let me know what you think. One of the records that I was lucky enough to receive as a present this year is OK Computer by Radiohead, one of my all-time favourite albums, and really influential when I was a lot younger than I am today. If you're interested in making vocals that sound like the lead singer of Radiohead, Mr. Tom York, then there's a link here to a video where I've shown you previously how you can achieve that. Thanks for watching.